Thank you. And I certainly enjoy coming back. I think I was here last year and it was a good experience. And I find this to be one of the better forums in the country, to be honest with you. Today we're going to talk about the journey to zero infrastructure, invisible infrastructure. What does that journey entail? But more importantly, it's going to speak to where are you on that journey, and we'll get to that in just a moment. First, I'd like to introduce our panelists, who are, quite frankly, some of the better leading industry personnel that I've come to chat with and get to know. We'll start first with Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Schneider. I'm Chief Digital Officer and Publisher of Merriam-Webster. And my experience is in content publishing primarily for magazine brands until I came to the dictionary, which is a beast all its own.
And we have Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Kagan, Trenchard, and I'm the AVP of Digital and Innovation Strategy for Northwell Health. We're the biggest healthcare company you probably haven't heard of yet, $11 billion company here in New York City in the metro area. Got 21 hospitals, about 450 ambulatory practices, about 62,000 employees. And so I handle the consumer-facing side of the IT world. So that's the websites, the digital signage, the mobile apps, et cetera.
Excellent. Again, my name is Andrew Guzman. I'm the Americas CTO. I run a CTO community in the United States, North America. I've been in the industry about 30 years, and I've seen many transformations. I think what's most critical is to really start talking about where are you on this journey. So take a look at this. This is a framework that I've researched and developed, and we use at HCL. It's literally a planning roadmap. We talked this morning, or we heard several speakers this morning speak to, it's about the destination. It's not about the technology per se. The technology will come as you drive through that journey. We use this as a framework, and as you can see here, this is actually a real-life example of one of the largest utilities in the United States. We use this model in financial services and healthcare and so forth. What's critical here is, based on the research and based on this client experience, we see there are certain stages that are repeatable, that constantly keep coming up. And what we've decided to do is put it into a planning framework. Having said that, we look at three stages that really require an element of understanding your environment, and then three additional stages that follow in terms of some sort of future destination. Our research is showing that the hump in the middle tends to be DevOps. And that's a classic issue. And in this case, the firm that we're looking at here, they're right there in the middle. They've completed the first three stages with us, and now they're moving into this whole DevOps world in order to get to agility. We talked about agility this morning. But again, this speaks to where are you on that journey? Each stage has a component or set of components that impact your ability to succeed and get to that next stage. And what these really are components that lead to a digital future. So again, elaborating more on the destination, on the goals of agility, and more importantly, where are you on that journey? We'll chat a little bit further with our panelists to have them address where are they on this particular journey. So let's start with Lisa and speak to looking at a journey, looking at a roadmap, and certainly where the industry is headed. Where are you on that digital journey in your role?
Yeah, we're definitely still in the first half. Merriam-Webster is a company that's 179 years old, so definitely falls into the category of a legacy company and was a print-driven company. We have really reinvented ourselves to be a digitally driven company. Now more of our revenue comes from digital than from print. We have over 1 billion impressions a year. We have a website and responsive, so you get on mobile, and apps. We have a huge social media presence and get a lot of press coverage for that. So on the front of it, we've made a lot of progress, and we have made a huge amount of progress. But on the back end, we have not made as much progress. And our editorial team is a little bit like the English language, which moves at a glacial pace. So, and I say that in terms of really the workflow and the infrastructure, right? Not the content itself. But we had been still using many of the data structures that we use to create a dictionary in print. And we were using those same data structures to put a dictionary online. And so I came to Merriam-Webster about 2.5 years ago and said, it's not working very well. And so, as we're moving into the cloud and moving all of our data into the cloud and trying to, turn into more of an API-driven organization so that, we have our canonical sources and, we make one change and we can propagate it everywhere, right? This is sort of the stage that we're still at. And I think, one of the most important lessons, and it's something that I've heard come up a lot today, is, this stage of the technology, right? This isn't the most complicated part. It's the change management that's the most complicated part. And that's true, both on the IT side, right? Because you've got people that are, maybe running a physical server center, and their job depends on racking servers and organizing those contracts and figuring out how to handle all of that for us. And I want to move everything into the cloud, and they're like, well, what the heck is going to happen to me? Only they don't say that out loud, right? They just sort of throw up all kinds of roadblocks. And so part of the management of that change is really kind of understanding what people's concerns might be and helping to bring them along. So I just coincidentally, there was a great tweet yesterday that I saw, and it said, bad managers try to make people do what they want, and good managers try to inspire people to do the right things. And you really have to figure out how to inspire that IT team, and whether that's giving them retraining, repurposing them somewhere else in the company. Sometimes those things are impossible, and the end result isn't great, but still kind of saying, you're going to get credit for this, and we're going to help you out. Whatever you can do to sort of understand that there are those roadblocks. But the other, sometimes less obvious side is really going across the company and figuring out who else is going to be impacted by this, and making sure that you are including them in those discussions and decisions in advance. And that's also for two reasons, right? One is that, again, you don't want to be shoving something down somebody's throat, right? You want to energize and engage your team. You want to inspire them to take this journey with you. And that is why we talk about the why, right? Why are we doing this? I work for the dictionary. I get asked all the time, what's my favorite word? That is actually my favorite word. Why? Why is my favorite word? Don't underestimate the small words. And so, make them understand why, make them get excited about where you're going and what products you could create. The editorial team may have been building things in the same way, for the last 50 years. But what they really want to do? They want to help people better understand the English language. That's what they want to do. They don't really want to build a print dictionary. They want to help people better understand the English language. And so when you inspire them to think about how they can do that on different platforms in different ways, suddenly they're interested in helping solve this problem. And if you're moving your data structure and it changes how they have to build what they're feeding over to you, you need to get them involved in that, because otherwise you could find that you've gone sort of 3/4 of the way down the path, and then they look up and go, oh, by the way, you never asked me, and that's not going to work. So you might not know everything, and you definitely want to get that input in advance.
Excellent. Your journey is less about the technology. It will empower where you're headed, and you're leveraging the technology. You mentioned APIs, but more importantly, your journey is a destination definition and the changes required to get there.
Exactly.
And it's a constant battle. That's what I'm sensing.
Yes.
Excellent. And so, Emily, where are you on this journey?
Well, being in healthcare, we're also still in that first phase. But I will say, like you said, the sort of front-facing piece is a lot smoother than maybe the back half of the piece. I have the benefit of actually reporting into the chief marketing officer, and have really had the privilege of building out a lot of the digital infrastructure that has moved into a cloud-based mode in what seems like high stakes in some industries because you are consumer facing, but it's actually low stakes when the other side of the fence is a cardiac care monitor, right? Mm-hmm. So our low stakes is when there's actually no one who might die because we take a risk on open source software, right? Mm-hmm. So we've actually had the good fortune over the past 5 years to be building out a comprehensive suite of APIs and web services for that consumer facing data set. We've made the transition off of proprietary software. We're now on completely open source software for our web-facing internet properties. So we've made quite a bit of transitions to that zero infrastructure goal on that consumer-facing side without the clinical piece. Now we're at that critical juncture where you've got to bring those two cultures together, right? So now we are trying to partner with those who are in IT to say, look, it's no longer enough that we allow your systems to sort of be only accessible inside the clinic, only when someone shows up inside an emergency department, people need to access their care. That is a continuous care relationship. How do we smooth those pathways in between the two? And you're absolutely right, that is all about culture change, right? That is all about making sure that people see a vision for themselves inside of what this new world is that you're building together, right? I think it's very interesting. We oftentimes talk about human-centered design when we talk about our consumers, right? But these same principles of human-centered design, when you apply them internally to your own employee base, you get something remarkable, right? And the failure to do so, the failure to apply human-centered design to internal systems, I think can be seen in no starker example than what has happened to our physician population with electronic medical records. If you want to see a failure to consider your end user in their user experience, look at the attrition rate of physicians leaving the profession, citing the single biggest reason that they are getting out of medicine is because they hate working with an EMR, right? If that's not a call to actually put humans at the center of everything we do, inside our organizations and out, I mean, I don't know what is.
So you speak to what I think is really one of the most transformative elements of this journey that we're all on, which is the end user experience and human design.
Yeah.
In your role, Lisa, as the digital leader, how are you leading that change? How are you driving that within the organization? Clearly, you can't do it by yourself.
I cannot. I definitely cannot do it by myself. I think, to your point, right, there are two different end users. There is your end consumer, right? Hopefully all of you are my consumer. You're using Merriam-Webster dictionary when you have to look something up. And no, but really people use the dictionary. Everybody uses the dictionary. Our user base parallels the census, right? There's no smart people use the dictionary more or dumb people use the dictionary more. Everybody uses the dictionary. And so we have that end user. And, when I talk about, how do I motivate editorial? I motivate editorial by talking about what is it that we're creating for them, right? How do we help people find the information that they need to better understand language so that they can better understand the world around them and better communicate with the world around them, right? That's our user, end goal. But in between internally, right, the different stakeholders that have to touch our products are our users. So I might have that conversation with editorial, but then I might turn around to my dev team and say, what, editorial is your end user. When you're building this new data structure, you need to partner with your end user and you need to understand what they need and you need to get their input, and this has to make sense to them, and it has to be easy for them to use, and it has to meet their requirements. We can't drive that as the technologists without incorporating them. So it's really understanding that depending on what piece you're looking at, your user might be a different population, and really paying attention to all of those.
And to some degree, you're describing the constant evolution of DevOps.
Yes.
The technological and the business-centric environment moving towards that journey to zero of a services portfolio management. In the healthcare field, it just strikes me that kind of a services end user approach with an ecosystem of a multitude of players really is your destination to meet those needs of patients and doctors. How are you driving that, and how are you elaborating this constant DevOps evolution, whether it's with APIs, whether it's with platforms, whether it's with service exchanges of various nomenclature? How is that evolving?
I think it's interesting that we sometimes think about DevOps as something like you just nail it and then you put it in the background, you forget about it. It's like your smoke detector. It's up on the wall, I'll get it when I need it. But that's not actually, I think, the best way to think about the relationship that the technologists are going to play in any business. Because quite frankly, I'm a very big proponent of having developers at the table with the business stakeholders, understanding how we're going to shape the solutions for the problems that we have. I mean, there's something really critical about having that engineering mentality, especially if we're saying we're all living in a digital world. To not have an engineering mentality, thinking about how to break down a problem and then potentially bring a technological solution to it when you're forming that strategic plan. So I don't think DevOps can be something that's just relegated to a utility, sort of like a water service or gas or electric or something like that. I think it needs to be a sort of a digital first mentality. I heard some other people talking about today, where everyone throughout the organization feels like they can leverage that expertise, where they are open door policies to go actually pitch ideas or ask questions of technologists when needed, and then rapidly being able to stand up the tools to take advantage of those ideas and explore them as need be, no matter where that idea comes from, right? Somebody else was mentioning that good ideas for products might come from the finance department, or they might come from somebody over in HR, but if you don't have those inroads of connecting people to the technologists who can actually then empower the ideas with the technology, your DevOps is never going to really reach its full potential.
Totally. And so it's a constant evolution on that journey to full-time agility. And as we move into this kind of future mindset of a services ecosystem, and DevOps is the balance and the business opportunity or the end game or hopefully destination is fully understood. Getting there is also a community, I want to mention again, ecosystem of internal mechanisms and services and so forth, plus external ones. In both your domains, Lisa, where are you extending out to build that services ecosystem of the future?
Well, look, people have been talking about, the move from screens to no screens and voice. And I think, for us, like for anybody, it's understanding what is it that I'm providing and how is it that people might be looking to use that now, or anticipate how people might be looking to use that in the future. And so again, it is about sort of creating an ecosystem among everybody where we're saying, this isn't just a technology decision. This isn't just about, building an Alexa voice app because, there's voice. And so we're just going to take what we have and build it. This is about including everybody. And, Merriam-Webster is a relatively small organization. So I think in some of these things, there's pluses and minuses, right, to large and small organizations. And one of the pluses for a small organization is it is a little bit easier to bring everybody together and to get everybody on the same page. So, a good chunk of the company reports up to me, and I'm able to kind of bring them all to the table. And in the example that I had given, for example, I see in Slack, we've got a channel just for this particular project, and the editors and the developers are constantly nonstop working together all day now, and we assign somebody from editorial whose job is to be the dictionary page product manager, and that person specifically came out of editorial, so that there's an editorial voice sort of on that product team working really closely. And so kind of integrating that so that now those conversations that you're talking about are happening naturally all the time because they're working together, and even if they're not co-located, they're in Slack together. And so you're able to have those conversations. And then when that other thing comes up, like, oh, my kid was using Alexa and I had this idea, right? They have the opportunity to just throw that out to all the right people. They're not just saying it to the person that works at the cubicle next to them over coffee. Right, they're able to throw that out to all the right people.
Excellent. So Emily, where are you seeing your firm and the journey you're leading them on in 3 years, in 4 years, in 5 years? What is it that you'll become? What's your goal, your destination? In healthcare, no less.
Well, I think there's two pieces to the goal and the destination. First, we're a company that grows through a lot of M&A activity, and so having those services on demand, having the API infrastructure actually is a huge part of how we then integrate these new people that we're acquiring and get them hooked up into our systems much more rapidly. That abstraction layer that APIs can provide has been absolutely invaluable to just bringing people together and then growing the business in general. And as to where we grow next, I really think that this notion that healthcare needs to be geographically bound is one that we're going to see quickly be melting away. I don't think you actually need to, in the world of telemedicine, actually necessarily be physically present in the same room as the physician in order to get some great care. And so as we go further out into the world, what's going to empower that? It's going to be the software. And that's the things that all of us in this room are in charge of building to really enable that.
So telemedicine, digital publishing, we're literally transforming within each of our firms. And I think what the most critical message that I heard so far is understand your destination. The technology will arrive. Understand your journey. What are the steps that you need to get to your destination? And I think that's the real critical piece here. So we're out of time, but I hope this was as interesting as it was for me. And certainly we'd love to chat with you further if appropriate. Thank you so much.
Thank you.